Welcome to the Open Specimen Training webinar series. In today's training, we'll be covering collection protocol module in Open Specimen. So we'll first see what are the topics that we'll cover. In Open Specimen, you can create different types of protocol. We'll see what are the different types like planned, longitudinal, clinical trial-based protocols versus general biobanking protocols. And if you plan to collect consents in Open Specimen, what are the options, how you can set it up in collection protocol. And then we'll look into more advanced settings in terms of how you want to generate unique IDs for patients, generate unique IDs for aliquots and specimens, and finally, other operations about managing the collection protocol. So we'll start with introduction first and foremost, what is collection protocol? So in Open Specimen, before you collect specimens, you need to create a collection protocol. And this can represent a collection of specimens based on a clinical study. It might be a longitudinal study for a particular research, or it might be disease-based collections, or it might be just a general biobanking collection. So for every different group of specimens collected for a particular purpose, you would create a collection protocol. And once you have an instance of Open Specimen, you can create as many collection protocols as you want. There is no restriction on number of protocols you can create. Now we'll move on to see what are the different types of collection protocol. So first and foremost is participant versus specimen-centric collection protocols. So we'll look at that in the demo site we have here. So for the newcomers, we have a public demo site. It is demo.openspecimen.org, where you can sign up and you can try out the software. We always have the latest version deployed on this instance. So right now I've logged in as a super admin. So I see different options here. We will be able to see different options, but you can log in with other roles as well. So you will have different options over here. Yeah. So now if I want to create a new collection protocol, I click on collection protocols either from the home page or from the menu over here. So, and when I go ahead and click on create, I see options. There is a type option here, which is participant-centric versus specimen-centric. So before you start creating a collection protocol, you have to know whether it is going to be which of these types. The reason being, once you create a protocol with one option, you cannot change it once you collect the data. So that this is one of the first thing you need to understand. And let's see what is the difference now. So if it is participant centric, that means you're going to collect patient data. Even if you're collecting just a subject ID to track all the specimens collected for a single patient, then it would be participant centric. So you might just collect maybe non-identified demographics like subject ID, gender, race, ethnicity. Still it would be participant centric. Of course, if you're collecting additional data like name, MRNs, SSN, all that will fall under participant-centric collection protocol. Whereas if you're not bothered about patient data, if you're just collecting specimen-related data, then you would create the protocol as a specimen-centric protocol. Examples are like if you're just doing cell lines or doing bacterial isolates, where you're not bothered about the patient data, or maybe you have not got IRB approval to hold patient data, then you would go to specimen-centric collection protocol. So that's the difference between these two. Next, we'll see the difference between planned versus unplanned protocol. So planned protocols, fall under the categories like longitudinal clinical trial-based collections, where you have an event calendar when you are going to collect the specimens. Like it might be day 0, day 30, preoperative surgery. So you have a well-defined collection procedure as to when you're going to collect the specimens, what type of collections are you going to make, and how you're going to process them, like what aliquots are you going to make, and all these can be predefined in Open Specimen protocol. So that is what we call as a planned protocol. Whereas in unplanned protocol, you won't be, knowing in advance what you plan to collect, because it might be just leftover clinical samples that is sent over to the biobank, where you just store it for long-term storage and give it as the researcher, request for samples in future. So those kind of protocols are called unplanned protocols. So we'll see in few minutes how to create these kind of protocols. So after the introduction. So before I create protocol, I'll let you know who can create a collection protocol. So let's go to the roles for this. So by default, of course, super admin and institution admin can create collection protocols. But other than that, the site administrator also can create collection protocols. So if you see here, there is a different resource, and you need to have create access under for this collection protocol in order to create a new protocol. So that is the so by default, only the administrator role has, none of the other roles like technician, tissue banker. They cannot create or update or delete protocols, but they will be able to use that protocol to enter specimens or patient data. So that's the roles part. So in Open Specimen, there is a module called custom forms, where you can create new custom fields into any screen. So Open Specimen, when you install, it comes with a default data model, but you can build up by adding additional annotations. And this can be at any level. You can add new fields at participant level, specimen level, and similarly, and when you're creating a collection protocol as well, you can add new custom fields. So let us go back to collection protocol create page here. So when you're creating a new collection protocol, so the fields that you see on top, these are all the default fields. But the fields that you see here, all these fields, these are not in Open Specimen, but someone has created them as custom fields because they found them missing in Open Specimen and they wanted to track that for every protocol. For example, they have a study type which says it's a clinical trial or just a repository, study design, description. So these fields are not in Open Specimen, but you can use the custom forms module to add new fields. And every time you create now a new collection protocol, these fields will be visible and you'll be able to enter the data for it. So we'll be covering custom forms in more detail in the coming up webinars. But just to give you an introduction of what can be done. So I just covered that. So now we'll move on to the actual creation of collection protocol. So first we'll see a planned collection protocol and a participant-centric protocol. So for that, we have a design like this. So for planned protocol, this is one of the first steps you need to understand whether it's going to have multiple time points where you're going to collect specimens, or it might be just one time point which will repeat after a few months. So I'll show you both options how to create that, and under each time point what you plan to collect and how we are going to process it. So in this particular example, I have a baseline visit when the patient comes in and I withdraw blood and some urine, and I'm going to process into plasma aliquots and urine aliquots. And I plan to do a 6-month follow-up for the same patient, where again, I'm going to draw some more blood, which I'm going to process into plasma. So this is a very simple design. I'm just taking up for the training, but you might have multiple time points like this, multiple specimens that you plan to collect. And again, within the planned protocol as well, it is not restricted for you to collect only the samples that you define in the protocol. So if there are additional things that you collect for every patient, if there are deviations, if you are collecting additional samples, all that can be changed during collection. So this is just a template you are going to build in the collection protocol. So we'll see that. And other thing you need to decide is whether you're going to plan to define consents in Open Specimen. So we'll see both options and we'll use this example. Okay. So we'll go ahead and create collection protocol. Again, let me go back to the protocol screen. So based on your access, when you go to collection protocol screen, you'll see these buttons. If you don't have access to create, you will not see this button. So I'll go ahead and create. So the first field I need to enter is sites. and these sites would decide who has access to this collection protocol, and it will decide what are all the sites who are involved in this, specimen collection, processing, storage of these collection protocol. So let me just now use this demo site and maybe one more hospital I can use. So, and the other thing you need to remember is the freezers that you have created. The freezers are stored in a site. That site has to be part of this collection protocol. So let me open the free containers in another page. So remember, we covered containers in the previous sessions where you can set up freezers, and these freezers are associated to a site. Now, suppose I want to store specimens of my new protocol in this Austin freezer, then I need to make sure that Arkansas repository site is part of this protocol. Otherwise, I'll not be able to use those freezers. So the sites decide two things. One is which users who has access to this protocol, and the other thing is which freezers or which sites freezers is going to be used for storage of specimens collected under this protocol. Okay, we'll come to the site code a bit later. I'll just give it a name now. So I will use training webinar protocol, and of course I'll make this as planned protocol. Yeah. So usually when you have IRB approved protocols, the title of the study is very long. So you can put that in here, and you can have a short title here, which will be displayed everywhere when you're doing data entry. So you can have a short, I'll just put it as training protocol here. And you can specify a code. Again, I'll tell you later about codes a bit later, because these codes are going to be used in a label generation, that is unique ID generation for your the specimens and patients. So we'll be using that. So I'll just put this here. And who is the principal investigator? So whomever you assign as principal investigator, they get by default read access to all the data of this protocol, including any patient data that you have, that is patient identified data. Okay, so I'll make some researcher as part of this as the PI, and I can put one or more coordinators as protocol coordinators. Again, once you assign someone as collection protocol coordinator, they will be getting access to all operations within this collection protocol, that is adding patients, adding specimen data, any forms related data. So coordinators will by default get access to this protocol. So you can assign one or more coordinators for your protocol. And if you want, you can specify start date and end date, but this is not mandatory. So mandatory fields in open specimen are indicated like this. So if you don't fill out, it will give an error, as well as it is indicated like this. Otherwise, you can leave it blank if you don't need. So I'll just put this. If you have put start date and end date, and if it is nearing end date, it also sends reminders that the IRB protocol is expiring. So that is the only use of this start date, end date. Otherwise, there is no use. I'll create this as participant centric. Expected registrations, it is just for information. You can just put it if you have, otherwise leave it blank. This SOP document is for assigning a document which users can refer to when they're doing data entry. So this might refer to the actual SOP of the protocol, or even maybe you might have created an SOP of how to enter data in open specimen for this protocol. So any document related to this protocol, if you want them to access, like the end users who are going to access this protocol, you can either give your wiki URL or somewhere where you have documented, or you can upload a file which can be downloaded during data entries. If you plan to upload surgical pathology reports like PDFs or text-based reports, you can enable this. If you want to extract the PDFs, if it's text-based surgical pathology reports, if you say yes, then it's going to extract and show the information to the end user so that they can read the report on Open Specimen. So that is the only use of these settings. And of course, these fields are not in Open Specimen. These are custom fields. They're just appearing here. And now I'll go ahead and create. So this is my first step in creating a collection protocol. And these are the basic information that you need to fill in. So as soon as you create a collection protocol, now you get a bunch of options here, as well as on the left-hand side, there are some tabs here where you can put more settings to the collection protocol. So we'll see one by one what are those settings. So this is my basic information. And then I go to consents. So in Open Specimen, you can track consents at individual consent years. For example, I can say I want to make sure that the patient is consented for distributing specimens outside university. I can add as many consents as I want, like this. And these consent statements are created at the system level. You can create as many consents as you want. So you can add this. So let me open that in another tab and show you. So on the home page, there is this consents card over here. So here is where you set up the consent statements. So the reason it is there at the system level is because you can reuse the same consents across collection protocols. And this is something that Institute admin and super admin can do. And once you've created these statements, you can reuse it under your protocol here. So once you set up these at every participant level, then you'll be able to say yes, no for each of these consents. And then you'll be able to do reporting. For example, give me all specimens of patients who have said yes to this consent. So these kind of things you'll be able to do if you track. Of course, this is an optional feature. If you don't want to track consents in Open Specimen because you're doing it elsewhere, then you don't need to set this up in your protocol. So that is the option here. And just before I move on, I'll just remove these consents because I didn't show you an option. So if you're not going to set up consents and not going to use consent feature, you can just set this flag. What this will do is the consent tab is not displayed for when you're adding patients. So it is just a usability because the users won't get confused because there is a consent tab that will get hidden if you set this as consent yes. Otherwise, you can set it as no and select any consents if you want. So I just a note here, I see that there are a couple of questions on the chat window. I'll be taking the questions at the end. So please feel free to keep adding it in the chat window. Okay, so this is the where you can set up consent. Next, we'll go to set up the events calendar. So I'll just show you the example I'll be using. So as we know, we have 2 event time points here. And under each time point, I'm going to define different requirements or the specimens I plan to collect. So mind it. So here I'm not creating the actual specimens. I'm actually just setting up the template so that I use this template for every patient data entry. Okay. So I'll go ahead and add this. I can give a visit event code if I want. And I'm saying that the baseline happens on the 0th day or the first day of the registration of the patient. I will give this as baseline. If I want, I can set some defaults like diagnosis, clinical status, and things like that, but I can leave this as not specified. Default site. This is a site which says from where you're going to collect the specimens. So you can, if you know that the specimens are always going to be collected from a specific hospital, you can set a default here. I'll come to printing later. So this is how I can add a new event. Now under this event, I want to say that I plan to collect a blood and make plasma out of it. So for that, I'm going to create a new requirement. If I want, I can give it a name. So I'll just give it a name here. I can give it a code if I want, which will be used in unique label generations. And then I'll say which is the type of specimen. And these fields are not mandatory. These fields are more applicable if you're collecting tissue samples. For blood, I'll leave it as not specified. If I want, I can specify initial quantity. Again, I can leave it blank if I don't know how much I plan to collect. But this is just, and this field is important because this will tell whether I'm going to store this specimen in the freezer. So usually what happens is when you collect blood, you're going to process it completely and you're not going to store the blood because you're going to use up to make aliquots of plasmas and serums. So that is why I will make it as no here. But the actual aliquots I'm going to set up as stored in a repository, yes. And if I want, I can set up a default collector. The containers, so there are some default EDTA containers I can set up, and I'm going to say the procedure is venipuncture. So all these are just, I'm setting defaults, but of course, when you're actually collecting it, if there are deviations, you'll be able to change these details. So now what I will do is I'm going to say that once I collect blood, I'm going to process into plasma aliquots. So how I'll show you how to do that. So first you need to create a derivative. So in open specimen, the difference between derivative and aliquot is derivative is a child which is different than the parent. So here, since I'm making plasma out of whole blood, then I'm going to create a derivative and then make aliquots out of it. Whereas if I'm just going to make blood aliquots, I can just directly create aliquots. So I'll specify this as plasma. And suppose I'm going to make 3 aliquots, I'll just make it 3 ml and create derivative. Now from this, I can create aliquots if I want. So what this means is I'm going to collect blood and I'm going to make 3 aliquots of plasma. So this is how it means. If I want to make additional child from EDTA, for example, I'm making buffy coat as well. So again, the same procedure. So for to creating the child specimen, you need to click on this 3 dots over here of the, at the level of the parent, and then you can create derivative like this, and then you need to specify the type. Say suppose 2 ml, and now again from buffy coat, I can create aliquots if I want. So this way I can create any levels of children or any types of children from the parent specimen. Now I'll go ahead and create another the specimen. So, but before that, if I go back to my design, I see that the 6-month follow-up is the same. I'm going to make blood and plasma, except that there is no urine. So at this point, what I'll do is instead of creating urine, first I'll make a copy of this event so that I don't have to recreate these kind of aliquots again. So I'll make a copy, and this follow-up is going to be after say 60 days or even 6 months. So it's here you can specify that, and I'm going to say it's going to be 6M as the event code and add. So what this would do is it will create exact copy of my baseline if you see, and I had created blood with plasma and buffy coat. Suppose in my 6-month follow-up, I don't plan to do buffy coat. I can always come here and remove that requirement or aliquots from here. So this is how. Now I can go back to baseline and add the urine. So I'll just add the urine type here. Yeah, I'm going to correct 20 ml and create. So maybe I'm making 5 aliquots out of it. So here you see I'm not creating a derivative because I'm just splitting urine into 5 parts. So it is just the same type of children. So that is why I make aliquots directly. But if you're making a different type of children, then you create derivative. Yeah, so this is how you can set up your protocol with multiple time points, and each time points can have their own specimens. And you also have these features where you can copy time points. Suppose you're collecting same type of specimens across time points. You also have an option of copy requirements. This will allow you to just suppose you collect two whole blood tubes which are very similar, then you can just copy that as well, which will create one more whole blood within the same time point. So this is how I can create a collection protocol with multiple time points, which is a participant centric protocol as well as a planned protocol. So even in your unplanned protocol, say for example, in your general biobanking, you might not have these specific time points, but you might still know what you plan to collect, how you plan to process it. So those kind of details can be set up in the protocol. So how this will help you is when you're doing data entry, it will allow you to use this as defaults. You don't have to enter this data for every patient, and it will also allow you to do reports like give me all patients from whom there was no blood collected in blood baseline. So all this is useful if you set up in advance in your protocol. And of course, as I mentioned, when you're doing actual collections for the patients, if there are deviations, suppose I collected only 5 ml of blood and made only 2 aliquots of plasma, so all these can be changed. So any reduction in the number of aliquots or increasing the number of aliquots, changing the quantities, so all this is possible when you're actually collecting. And if you're collecting saliva for specific patients, you have not defined in the protocol, but you can still create them for specific patients. So this is just a template you're building in your protocol, which will help you to do data entry and things like that. So that is my example where I've set up consents, events, and requirements. Now we'll move on to generating labels. So labels means two things. One is generating unique IDs within open specimen, which will identify every unique patient, every unique aliquot. So that is also called as label. And labels can also mean the printed physical label. So both of these can be configured in open specimen. So we'll see an example of that. And if you see here, this is an example format. You can define any kind of format per protocol, how you want to generate unique IDs for your patients, specimens, and aliquots. And of course, this is again an optional thing. If you have pre-barcoded tubes for your aliquots, you don't want open specimen to generate, but you want to scan in your unique IDs or barcodes into open specimen. That's also an option. You don't have to set up label formats in that case, and you can do it that way. So just to clarify, you have two options. Option one is you let the open specimen generate unique IDs for your patients and specimens, which you can print, which is when you integrate open specimen with your printer. The second option is you don't let open specimen generate it for you, but you are scanning in because you already have pre-barcoded tubes. So both options are possible. So now we saw how, so now let's go back to our protocol. So these were some basic details. We set up consents over here. Then we set up events and requirements over here. Now we'll go into settings. So you see there are multiple settings you can set at a collection protocol level. We'll go over one by one. So the first one is the label format and settings. So we'll go to edit. So this part is where you define formats so that open specimen generates unique IDs for your patients, visit names, specimens, derivatives, and aliquots. If you are going to enter this manually or scan in, then you can leave these blank in your protocol. Then the system will generate it for you. System will not generate it for you. So now in our example, we wanted to generate in this format. So I'm going to use something called as tokens. So we'll see what a token means. So token means a unit of information. So if you see in our labels, so let's take the aliquot label. So the first part of the label is the protocol code to understand for which protocol this specimen belongs to. So 001 is my patient ID. And then comes the, PL means the type of specimen, .1 is the aliquot number. So each part of that label corresponds to some information. And in order to include those information, you can use something called as tokens. So as you see in our wiki page, so we have a help manual, help.openspecimen.org, where you can access our user manual. And if you go under user manual, administrative setup, collection protocol, you have this label format settings. And under that, you can go to PPID format. So here is where these are the different tokens available for generating unique patient IDs. So each of these tokens will convert into information when you actually generate the patient IDs. So at the first look of it, it might look scary or it might look difficult, but there are a lot of examples in your user manual. You can use the combination of it and see how it works. We recommend you try all these on your test server, understand how the labels work, then you can set it up on your production. But before you do all that, you need to discuss with your a team and come up with such formats. What is the best format to generate your unique IDs for patients and specimens? This is a format we generally follow if the user is okay with it. Okay, so we'll see how to set this up now. So first I'll use some tokens here to generate my patient ID. So CP code is the token to get this TR in my patient ID. If I go back to my patient tokens here, if you see here the CP code, and there is this unique ID that you can use called CPUID, which generates unique identifier within the protocol. But if you want system-wide unique ID, then you can use this as well. But I'm going to use the CP code. And if you see in my, this is the 4 digits, so I'm going to use CPUID. And in bracket, I'm going to say, which means it's a 4-digit unique ID. The visit name can also be auto-generated, but by default, anyway, the system is auto-generating it. So if you're not bothered about specific format, I would say just leave that empty so that the system will do it. So if you go to the visit name format, the user manual, you'll see that this is the default label. That is the PPI event label and SysUID. But if you want other tokens are available, you can set it up. So I'll just skip visit name as of now. Then we'll go to the specimen token. So if you see here, I want my specimen, the primary specimen, to be the patient ID underscore, then, sorry, I missed a 0 here, but it needs to be patient ID underscore the type of specimen and a number to identify. Suppose I'm collecting more than one blood sample, I want 1, 2, 3 for every blood sample. So I'll use the token as PPI, which means it will replace with the PPID or the patient ID. Then I need an underscore. And then I need the token which will replace the specimen type. Okay, so that is the SP type here. So I'm going to talk more about this specimen type here. So if I go to configure specimen labels, so and I go under tokens, you'll see there is this specimen type token. And you see that the specimen type actually in the label, it will not generate whole blood as the full word, but it is replacing it with an abbreviation. So where is this abbreviation coming from? We'll see that here. So there is in open specimen something called as drop-down manager, which only super admin can access. You go to extras from the menu and go to drop-down manager. This is a place where you can manage all the drop-downs in open specimen. And here, if you go to specimen type, drop downs or any list fields like radio buttons and things like that. So if you go to specimen type, so these are all the types of specimen which are there by default. Of course, all of these drop downs by default have values, but you can add, edit anything under in your instance. If you want to change, you can use this drop down manager. The reason it is available only for super admin is you don't want each group to have their own drop downs with different values. So you can control at the system level as to what values are there. So now coming back to specimen type. So now if I go to whole blood, So there are something called as properties under each type of specimen. And if you see here, this is where you set the abbreviation. So now this abbreviation is what is used in the token that you specify here. So similarly, if you go to another type, say, suppose I go to plasma. So this also has the abbreviation as PL. So if you want just P instead of PL, this is the place you need to go into change that. So that's why I'm going to use the specimen type token. And then I want a unique number. So for numbers, usually any type of sequence kind of tokens, they are ending with UID. There are different UIDs here. You can use any of the UIDs. For my purpose, I'm going to use a PPI underscore UID, which means that it's going to generate a unique ID within a patient. So for every whole blood I'm going to collect, it's going to add like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm just going to use the same tokens in my derivative. But for my alicot, I'm going to use this token, that is pspec label. By the way, these things that you see here, it's not a drop down. It's my browser prompting this because I've used this before. This is a text field. You need to have this user manual if you're not aware of the tokens, and use this. So this particular token, what it does is it uses the parent label and just puts a number here. So if we go back to our example, so my parent label is TR001 underscore PL1. For every alicot, it's just going to put .1, .2, .3. So that is why this is pspec UID. That is UID within your parent. So these are just an example of tokens, but you can go through our different tokens that are documented in these manuals. You can use a combination of it. The only restriction you need to make sure is you use the token exactly as it is listed here. The other restriction is the combination of these tokens should generate a unique ID, because in open specimen, every specimen has to have a unique ID. So you need to make sure whatever you use, these tokens should generate a unique ID in the end. And to do that, we usually recommend you use any of these UID tokens, which will add a sequence and generate a unique ID. Next, we'll go to some of the advanced settings here. There is user input allowed, which means that you can enter it manually, as well as you can validate the labels based on these tokens. So you use these checkboxes only if you want to validate the format of your IDs based on certain format. Otherwise, if you leave it blank, that means you can manually enter it. So there are other settings here, like if you want to close parent specimens as soon as you create child, which means that the parents are going to be marked as not available. If you want, you can do bulk registrations, that is creating multiple patients at a time. This is useful if you want to pre-register patients and pre-print specimens. So imagine you have a use case where you're expecting 20 patients on a particular day. You want to keep all the specimen with tubes and printed labels ready. Then you can bulk register and bulk register dummy patients, but later when they actually come, then you can update the correct information. In addition to label, you can generate another ID, which is called barcode. You can also generate barcode formats. Again, similar, you can use tokens to generate barcodes. So you can collect directly just the primary specimens or all specimens. So this is just to show on the collection page whether you want to show all the alicots or parent specimens at once. Then finally, there is the print settings, whether you want to pre-print labels. So these you see here, if I say, suppose I want to say on registration pre-print. So you see that I have this pre-print option, which means that even before I collect the specimens, I can print the labels. This is useful if you know in advance that someone is coming today for 6-month follow-up. So you keep the tubes ready with pre-printed barcodes. since you have defined what you're going to collect in the protocol, like you're going to make 3 plasma aliquots, 2 Buffy codes, the system knows how many labels to print. And you can select preprint for primary specimens, aliquots, whatever you want to print, how many copies of it you want to print, you can specify all that and then save. So this is how you can define different settings for your label generation and printing. For printing, you need to do additional print rule settings. We'll again cover this in more detail in another session. But just to give you an idea, if you go to printing configuration on our Confluence, just search for label printing configuration. So you have steps of how to set up printing from OpenSpecimen. So there are a few steps you need to do. The first step is in the protocol, you set up whether you want to pre-print or during collection. Then you need to set up print rules as to how you want, what all data you want to print on the label. So all that needs to be done. So that's about the labels and configuration. So, and again, to repeat, if you are going to scan in labels, suppose you want to scan in labels only for aliquot, then you can leave out this particular field empty so that you get an option to scan the labels. Now going into more settings here, as I mentioned, you can have custom forms in OpenSpecimen. And once you set up custom forms, for example, for clinical data, or you might have pathology data, specimen test results, biomarkers. So all these can be set up as custom forms in OpenSpecimen, which we'll cover again in another session. But once you set up forms for a protocol, then you can redefine it and arrange the order of the forms in using these settings, so that when you actually do data entry, you can enter data for a patient one after another using these forms module. Yeah, so that is the form settings. You have this container settings, which allows you to edit and auto allocate your storage locations. Least empty location means your backfilling locations, that is you're using up older freezer locations which might have got free because you're distributing specimens, or you can use recently used, which means just it will start using the next available box in that freezer. Store all aliquots in the same box will make sure that all aliquots of a patient, or sorry, of a parent specimen is in the same box. So that is some of the options you have. There are other options which again we'll not cover today because it's more related to distributions and reports, which we'll cover in another session, which will make sense with that. So these are all the things that you can do in the protocol creation and setting. And this is an example of how you could create a planned participant-centric collection protocol. We will be covering data entry in more detail in another session, but just to show you how the data entry looks like for our training protocol, I'll go into the participants list and I'll click on single participant to create a new participant. So by default, these are the demographic details that you will see when you create a collection protocol registration. And these data entry screens are configurable in terms of if you want to hide default fields, add new fields. Again, this is something that you can configure. Advanced configurations we'll be covering as another topic. But for now, I'm going to create a training patient here. I'm just going to put some specific basic details and add the patient here. So as soon as I add patient, based on what I've defined in my protocol, if you see, I see the baseline and 6 months as my pending visits. And if I click on the baseline, since I've set preprint, the labels are auto-generated, but these are not actually still collected. If I need to collect, I need to choose this and mark them as collected. And now when I collect it, I can, change the number of aliquots from here, change the quantity, whatever I want. During collection of the specimens, I can do whatever I want. So this is how it will look like, and this is where you can collect consents, where you can upload a signed consent form, do all of this here. So this was just a quick walkthrough because I wanted to just show you once you create a collection protocol, how it really looks like. But we'll be covering data entry in more detail in future sessions. And the other thing, if you would have noted, the labels are generated based on the format we had defined. So these are the labels based on the tokens that we used, it gets generated like this. So that is the example of the training protocol. So now we'll see the other details of how you can manage collection protocol. So once a protocol is created and now you start entering data of patients and specimens, but you want to change the protocol at any time because you renewed the IRB and you made some changes, you can always change the collection protocol at any given point. So there is no restriction on changing any details over here, adding new consent tiers, or maybe you can add additional time points, remove certain time points. So you have an option to close, which means that for previous data, the data will still stay as it is, but going forward, it will not show up baseline or whatever. So for example, 6 months, I don't want it to appear for future patients. I can close this event, or even I can also close the requirements here. Suppose I close it, it will mark as red here, which means now the urine samples that got collected for older patients will remain as it is. For newer patients, the urine sample will not appear. So that's the close here. But I can make any changes in my protocol. So that's the update part of it. So in order to edit collection protocol, you need to go into collection protocols. And if you are using open specimen since a long time, you might have lot of protocols. If you can search it using these filters on the right side, or you can also this is a new feature here, where you can star protocols, which means you can mark them as favorite so that it will always appear on top of your list. And this star is only for specific users, so it will only appear for my protocol list. And once I am on the list, I can click on this eye icon. So this is where if I want to edit the protocol, I click on the eye icon. But if I want to do data entry, that is, I want to add patients, specimens, I can click either here or I can use these links, directly go to the participants and specimen list. But if I want to edit or see the protocol setup, I click on this view CP details, which will take me to this screen, and I can edit anything I want from here. And other options you see, suppose I want to edit, I want to delete. So delete, it will show you how many registrations are already occurred. So if you want to delete, you can go ahead and delete. You need to put a reason. But so this is available only for people who have access to delete. But this will delete all the data within the protocol. So you need to make sure you're sure of doing that. That's why the warning. View participants will go to the participants list. Export is a good feature. Usually when you create collection protocol, you do it on a test server. You train the users. Once they're ready to use it, then you move the protocol to another, that is a production server. So for that, you export from here, and from the main screen, you have the option of importing the collection protocol from this import option. So this is allowing you to import collection protocol. So this is allowing you to move collection protocol from one server to another server of open specimen. But if you want to make copies of collection protocol, that is, there's a new protocol which is very similar to the existing one, then you can use the clone option. So that is another feature there. So we saw how you can clone, export, and import. And delete will delete all the data. So make sure you're sure that you really want to do that. So that is some of the features of collection protocol. You can look up at help.openspecimen.org for more details. We have forums which will allow you to create any new questions or requests. You can use that, or of course you can contact us at support@Prishangni if you have support contracts. Now we'll take up any questions you have. There was a question whether you can renew a collection protocol if the end date is expiring. Yes, of course, you can renew it. You can change, you can go back to edit collection protocol and change the end date over here. That is the renewal there, and you can make any changes, as I mentioned, even after you have collected the data. There is another question: is deleting a specimen the most effective way to destroy data associated with the collection protocol? Yes, you can. So if you want to delete all the data, then the easiest way is to come to this screen, that is the collection protocol overview, and delete. This will delete all the specimen and patient data. But if you want to delete specific patient data or specimen data, then you would go to that screen and delete. So that is the two options there. Okay, any other questions? So as I mentioned, this is a weekly webinar. We'll be conducting more such topics. We'll be posting the next topics tomorrow. Most probably in the next session would be on custom forms, how you can add new fields into Open Specimen. But if you have other suggestions, like Milos from Washu said, he wants to see reporting, we will be definitely covering reporting in another session. But if you have other questions or any specific topics you want us to cover, please let us know on the forums, and we'll be happy to cover them in the coming up webinars. Okay, thank you all. So see you in the next webinars. Stay safe and have a good day.